All right. Looks like we are live. All right, welcome. Hey, thank you, Epic Fish, new channel member. Thank you, my friend. All right, starting off strong with the new stream. All right, let's see here. I think we're. Oh, sorry. Let me put my phone on mute. Don't want to have that interrupt us. All right, awesome. So, welcome, my friends. Welcome. So today, you know the drill, Q&A, and I just kind of work on a piece in front of you. I was asked to cover modulation today, and I will tackle that in a little bit. First, I figured I would show you guys what I've been working on. All right? That way, give some people some time to like get onto the stream, stuff like that. So right now, what we have in front of us is the sketch of what I am thinking is gonna be a new violin concerto. I'm trying to do some standalone pieces, some like non-media music, some concert music. And I have really been inspired by two artists. One is the piece Mother's Broom from Joe Hisaishi's album recently. It's originally from Kiki's Delivery Service, but a year or two ago, he released a new album where there was another recording of it. It's absolutely breathtaking. So that's what inspired me to do a violin piece. And then Tchaikovsky's Violin Concerto is actually, I was studying that piece recently. It was beautiful. I don't want to do anything that large scale, but I figured I'd try writing something like that. Now, the thing with this piece is I feel like it might be coming off a little jazzy for violin. Oh, what's going on? My phone. I'm wondering if it's a little jazzy for the violin, but I figured we'll listen through to this. I'll pop up a little note. Piece I'm currently writing. If you have Q&A questions, pop them in the comments. All right, so we'll zoom in on this. So we've just got this nice little thing, and I'll bring up the themes. So in a concerto, it's very often based on something called sonata form, where there are two primary themes. So what we have here is we have my first theme. I repeat my first theme. I have a little bit of a transition. Then I introduce my second theme, which we wrote together a little while ago. I repeat my second theme, and then we start going into the development, where each theme starts to get a little more broken up and experimented. So when I say I'm taking inspiration from Tchaikovsky's Violin Concerto, I'm saying that I am a very melodic writer, like Tchaikovsky. I'm not comparing myself to Tchaikovsky in terms of skill. More just like I write tunes. I'm not a German composer. I don't come up with really cool little motifs. And so my tunes are already established. So rather than trying to break them down and chop them up and turn them all over which ways, I think this concerto is going to just kind of explore different variations of my themes. So actually, I'm kind of excited to show you guys this theme because it's a variation of the first one. But let's listen to it together, all right? And I will point out which themes are happening. As usual, we're going to be listening to this as we go on. This is just what I'm working on. It's here to help me get a little bit of momentum for the stream. If you have questions, pop them in the comments. I'd be happy to track them. I've been asked to talk about modulation. We'll talk about that after this, but I just kind of want to show this off to you. We have the introduction, which I have an image in my head for the introduction. I have an arrangement I want to use. And here we have the first theme. Hey, welcome, Steven's World. And then in the concerto, of course, we're going to repeat the primary theme again, so I have a little bit of transition. You can see the harmony is very simple. It's one chord for every two bars. It does sound a little bit like Michael Giacchino's theme for Up, right? I think when I was writing this I came up with this first theme a couple years ago, and I want to reuse it. So I think I was definitely inspired by Up when I wrote it. And then we have a transition to our second theme. Since the chords for the first theme are very simple, I wanted to create something a little more dense for the second theme. So we have a nice little modulation. So then the theme repeats. And again, this is why I was originally writing it for a violin concerto. But I don't know if I would like this on violin. I suppose it would depend on the accompaniment as well. I think a violin could play this pretty well. Then we start experimenting with the themes again. This is the original theme, with a bit more swing and a more complex harmony. Ooh, thank you, Steven's World. Then the theme returns again. So what's the theme of the song? It's a good question. Let me think about this for a moment. And that's what I have so far. I'm gonna have to work on a couple of developments here and there. So Steven's World asks, what's the theme of the song? So you're asking, like, what is this piece about? I'm not actually sure. So the original theme, this one right here. That one was originally written for one of the very first like little film score competitions I ever entered, like way early in my career. When I was just kind of working, it was for an old black and white film, Alice in Wonderland, and it was a competition for a string quartet. And the idea was like you entered the competition, you scored the little scene from Alice in Wonderland, which was a black and white film, like I said, a silent film. You wrote for a string quartet and you scored the scene. And then the winners were going to be performed by a famous string quartet in New York. So obviously I didn't win, but the arrangement, I think I still have it on my computer here somewhere. The arrangement I did actually got the attention of one of the judges, who was a teacher at Juilliard. And so she reached out to me to let me know she really liked my arrangement, and she offered me a free lesson. So I got to have a free lesson with her, and that was really, really cool. I got to learn a lot about string writing from her from just one lesson. And that really empowered me a lot. Like having such like a prestigious person tell me that I had a lot of promise as a composer and to reach out to me specifically to let me know was really, really cool, even though I didn't win. And so that helped a lot. But this theme always kind of stuck with me, and those opening chords too. That C major 9 and that D major 6. I've always loved that sound. Those were chords that I found on a piano just playing around. Yes. So now I don't really know what this theme is about, which is really weird because I'm a big proponent. Like you guys know me, my entire brand is like storytelling with music. This piece actually came out of frustration for me. I was getting really frustrated finding that I wasn't really writing music for fun anymore. I was doing stuff for YouTube. I was doing stuff for projects, but I wasn't actually writing just for me. And so I decided I needed to spend time working on an actual project just for me. And so this came about. And I wasn't really feeling inspired. I wasn't really feeling motivated. So I was like, you know what? Let's just treat it like an academic exercise. I'm going to force myself to write for myself. I'm going to focus on my craft, not inspiration. And this is what I kind of came up with. I mean, I wrote this theme live in front of you guys. I think like the last live stream I did. Yeah, we did this one together. And when I say I did this, I took a academic approach. That's what I did. I treated it like an assignment. There's not a lot of inspiration behind this. I came up with the chord progression. first, like I almost always do. And my inspiration for the chord progression was, all right, let's go to a different key. I like D major, so I went to D major. And I thought, all right, my first theme, it needs to offer contrast from my first theme. My first theme has a super, super simple chord progression. That's 2 bars. 2 more bars, so that's 4 total. Back to E minor. Back to A major. That's 8 measures right there. 4 chords across 8 measures. And then the following scene. That's very, very lackluster. And I'm the kind of person who loves really complex harmonies. I love doing just cool, jazzier things. So I thought with my contrasting theme, I want to do something fun. I want to have something a little more adventurous. So that's how I came up with this little idea. And then what chord is that? It's down in. My little keyboard's too tiny. But yeah, so I came up with that chord progression and came up with the melody. And then we'll talk about the variation. And then we can get to the lesson. So again, if you all have questions and stuff, Steven's World, I dare you to incorporate a genre of music not usually incorporated into orchestral music. That's tricky. Because at this point, I feel like thanks to innovations in like film music and media music, like there's all kinds of genres that are like everything's being brought into the orchestra. I mean, Daniel Pemberton in Into the Spider-Verse used a scratch he scratched an entire orchestra, like with like a DJ setup, and he did it with like the whole. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that's been brought in. So like, what do you have specifically in mind? Because at this point, I feel like the orchestra has been pretty integrated. But so yeah, so before we move on, I had my original theme. So that was the original theme, and then I just kind of arranged it. I gave it some jazzier harmony because I'm a sucker for jazzier harmony. And I actually came up with this version first. Some jazzier harmony, and then gave it a bit of a swing, and we have the new variation. And so yeah, that's what I'm working on at the moment. Let's see here. Do EDM or like breakcore or something synthy. That's okay. So I'm not very good at synths, unfortunately. I've got to work on that a bit more. I know enough. I can design patches. I can design patches as I need them, but I don't have a lot that I'm not very fluent with them, unfortunately. I don't know a lot about the genres themselves. But like I said, Daniel Pemberton's soundtrack. I've got the movies right here. One second, give me a second. I have a giant bookshelf right off camera. And it's got all my favorite movies. It's got a bunch of my favorite books, stuff that I like to reference and take inspiration from. These soundtracks, I can't imagine anyone has on my channel and hasn't seen these movies. Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse. Amazing integration of the orchestra with hip-hop, electronic elements, all kinds of different genres. Daniel Pemberton is a genius. But let's see here. So, I was asked specifically to do a tutorial on modulation. So let's pop this up. Let's pop this bad boy up here. How do you modulate in music? So first off, modulate equals change keys. All right. So first off, modulation is only important during like tonal music. If you are writing within a specific key, a major key, a minor key, a specific mode or scale. I will say, first things first, modulation gets way more, well, no, respect's the bad word, for it's like there's too much intimidation factor behind it. People get intimidated by it too easily. Modulation is very, very, very simple. All right, there are lots of different ways. All right, there are essentially two broad categories: unprepared and prepared. We'll say two broad categories. So unprepared modulation is exactly what it sounds like. Oops, what's going on? Huh. Okay, my keyboard's acting up. I'm supposed to hit Alt followed by 26. I'm supposed to do an arrow, but I'll ignore that. So unprepared, exactly what it sounds like. You just change keys. No tricks or special expectations. All right. You just change keys. One moment you're one key, the next, and you're another. So, for example, we have a chord progression in the key of C major. So, that's our chord progression. If we wanted to repeat it and have an unprepared modulation, we just change keys. Now, it starts and ends on D major. It has a nice cadence to E major at the very end. All right, we are now in the key of D major. So it starts in C major, then repeats in a new key. Oops, had to change octaves on my keyboard because it's very tiny. And then you could try doing it in the other direction as well. Oops, having to read some tricky keys. So now in the key of B major. You just change your keys. If you were to do this with an example with a melody. So let's copy and paste one of my themes from over here, shall we? Let's say I'm working with this key. This key is D major. I can have a totally unprepared modulation. I can have the theme one way, and then just move it up. Probably should start with the second half. And you can very simply just move to a different key. We moved up. And the cool thing about unprepared modulations, and I will say this, unprepared, most common in film and media. All right, no special trick or expectations. All right, so unprepared, we can also think of these as gear shift modulations. They have an exceptionally strong emotional impact because they happen so quickly, because you don't have to prepare them, because there are no rules. They can have a very strong emotional impact, and it's very, very simple. If you take your key, all right, so we take this entire thing, and you modulate where your tonic is higher in pitch, it's going to sound like there's an increase in energy. It's going to sound brighter, more tense. Let's listen to the last half and listen to this again. It's going to sound brighter. Right? Now watch what happens. Original key. Watch what happens when we take that tonic, when we take the original home, D, natural, and we lower it. Suddenly, the emotional impact's going to be very different. It's going to sound very dark, a little more relaxed, Maybe dark is the wrong time. It can sound, it's not necessarily a negative impact. It just feels like a release of energy. Rather than building up energy, there's a release. And you can think of it almost like fighting gravity, right? It takes more energy to fight against gravity and move up than it does to just let go and let gravity do the work pulling you down. So again, we'll listen to the emotional impact, the personality impact it has, changing a key, moving down. Right? We can have it be even more dramatic by having a stronger, like it's the same direction. We still moved down from D to C sharp, but the more distantly related two keys are, we'll set put here. And this is the general rule for all modulations. The more distantly related two keys are, the stronger this impact will be of your modulation. All right. Now, distant related keys are keys with two or more different accidentals between each other. All right, so an accidental is a sharp or flat sign. So if we pull up circle of fifths, a circle of fifths is an organization, like a way of organizing the different keys. All right, 1 second. Let me see this. Let me pull this up. All right, so we can see C major and G major. We look at the two key signatures. There's only one sharp difference. This is the same as this. There's just a sharp sign added. So these are two closely related keys. But C and D, there are two. There's a difference of two. So that is a distantly related key. A distance of like 3 differences compared. But D and A, again, D has 2 sharps, A has 3 sharps. There's only 1 sharp difference between the two. So they are closely related keys. So if we take a key, also, this is a live stream. So if you guys got questions while I'm explaining all this, pop them in the comments, please. I like to have conversations. I like to make sure that what I'm sharing makes sense. So if we listen to the shift here, going from D major, in fact, let's pull that back up. Going from D major, that has 2 sharps, to C sharp major, which has 7 sharps. This is a very distantly related key. So listen to how strongly this impact is going to be from changing from D major to C sharp major. Right? Very kind of dramatic, chromatic color. More so than we did by moving to C major. All right, which still had a dramatic color, but not as much. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, let me know in the comments. Let's see. It's cool. Yes, unprepared. So I want to say the term unprepared tends to get bad slack. People think, a lot of beginners think unprepared means unintelligent, unchallenging, non-difficult. That's nonsense. Unprepared and prepared serve different purposes. An unprepared modulation is about emotional impact. It's about having a very strong, in-your-face impact. Because most unprepared modulations are going to be distant modulations. All right, C major to D major. That's distant. If we move up or down, C major to B flat major, that's again a distant one. C major to B major is a distant relationship. The notes, you'll notice on a circle of fifth, as we go clockwise, each one adds 1/5, like adds a sharp. Start with C, you move up to G major, a perfect fifth. G major has 1 sharp. You go from G major up a perfect fifth to D major. D major, the key of D major, has 2 sharps. If you go with C and you move down a perfect fifth, the key of F has 1 flat. Move down another perfect fifth to B flat, you get 2 flats. So unprepared modulations very rarely move by such large leaps. They usually move by a major second up, a minor second up, or a minor second down. I mean, you can do larger ones if you'd like. But for the most part, again, you don't need to have any kind of trick. A prepared modulation using a specific strategy, like a pivot chord, to change keys. All right? These have a smoother sound, a more gradual transition. So for example, I use a pivot modulation earlier in this sketch, right here. So in this key, we are going from, I believe, the key of E major, or E minor. Yes, the key of E minor. We're going from E minor, and there's a bit of chromatic coloring there. And I need to go to D major. To do that, I navigate with this little 4-bar transition. And you hear how smooth that sounds. There's that pull to resolve. When we get here, it doesn't feel sudden. It doesn't feel emotionally jarring. It feels natural. It feels like it was supposed to happen. Let's listen to it one more time. And the vast majority of this pull that feels natural is because of this chord. All right? An A dominant 7, which wants to resolve to D major. This is what's called a secondary dominant. All right? It mimics a very specific relationship. Example equals secondary dominance. So again, I have videos about secondary dominance. I got lots of stuff. If you want my book, my textbook has has a whole thing about secondary dominance. But secondary dominants mimic a very specific relationship in the major scale. So let's take a major scale. Here we have a C major. If we find all the chords of C major, we find that the 5 chord, especially when we have the 7th added on top, resolves very nicely to the 1 chord. And this creates what's called an authentic cadence. All right, the most definitive, strongest way to end a piece of music in Western European music theory. So what we can do is we can mimic this relationship. Anytime you want to modulate to a new key, you can mimic this relationship using a secondary dominant. Let's say your new key randomly is A major. All right, you want to land in A major. And you want it to sound prepared. You can end your chord in the first chord progression with the dominant chord. You find E, what's the 5th of your target chord? The 5th scale degree is E. And you build a dominant 7 chord. That's in a major chord with a mother minor 3rd on top. Oops, I went down too low. All right, and it has that nice little pull. The reason why there's this beautiful little pull is because of these 2 notes. So if we pull this into the key of C major again, just to make it easier to see, because there's no accidentals, the 3rd and 7th of your 5th scale of the 5 chord form a tritone, which is an incredibly dissonant interval. And the tritone just so happens to very beautifully resolve inward. It's very satisfying, right? And these two notes are found in the 1 chord. And so to navigate a transition, one of many strategies is to use what I did here. And that was the exact strategy I used. I was like, all right, I have these 4 bars. I know that I need to end. Oops, where am I? It's like, I have these 4 bars. I know that I need to end on D major. So what chord pulls into D major? My A dominant 7. So it's like, all right, A dominant 7, here we go. And I gave it a little bit of a jazzier spelling because I knew that I had, this part was earlier in the piece. Those 2 chords I was talking about, C major 9, D major 6. And then I just kind of gave it, what chord is this? This is a, I have no idea what chord this is. I wrote it down somewhere. Q bass makes it a bit hard to identify because of all the sharps instead of flats. But my main goal was to have this A dominant 7, which pulls into the D major. There are other ways you can do harp modulation, pivot modulation. You have secondary dominants, substitute dominants. You have common chords. And we'll actually just stick to those 3. So we talked about secondary dominants. A secondary dominant, a substitute dominant is very, very similar, where we have that relationship of you want to modulate to C major. And we know that this tritone is what drives that pull. So if we take the entire chord and we drop it down a tritone, 6 half steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we still have the tritone. It's just inverted. Same exact interval, just a different order. And so this is called tritone substitution. It's a different chord, but with the same tritone. Let's see here. And it has a very satisfying feel as well. So this is called a substitute dominant. It's tritone substitution. And then a pivot chord, a common chord, is when you just modulate between 2 keys and you make sure that they have at least one chord that the 2 keys share in common. So you end on the chord they share, and then you just move into the next chord that way. Let's see here. Steven's World, please explain why we need such complicated wheels for understanding music. Ooh, okay, so the circle of fifth. Circle of fifth is not complicated. It's deceptively. It looks complicated. All right, let's understand the circle of fifth. I kind of alluded to it. The circle of fifth is a very simple way. It doesn't look simple, but let me explain. It's very simple. This is a very easy way to remember your keys. And it's all based around a perfect fifth. And so we'll demonstrate this. C major. Watch what happens if I write out a C major scale. All right, C major. No sharps, no flats. What happens if we take the entire key and we raise it a perfect fifth? That's 7 half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We get G major. How many sharps or flats does G major have? It has 1 sharp, F sharp. What happens if we take G major and we raise that a perfect fifth? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We get D major. D major has 2 sharps, F sharp, C sharp. What if we raise it a third perfect fifth? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Suddenly, we have 3 sharps, C sharp, F sharp, G sharp. It's really, really cool. If you take the major scale, starting with C major is neutral. There are no sharps, no flats. Every time you move clockwise, a perfect fifth above C is G. You can think of it as the 5th scale degree of major scales, a chord. So C major, the 5th scale degree is G. So that's a perfect fifth above. Perfect G major, a perfect fifth above is D. etc., etc. But every time you move up by a perfect fifth, you get a key signature with one more sharp. G major has 1 sharp, D major has 2, A major has 3, E major has 4, B major has 5, F sharp major has 6, C sharp major has 7. All right? And by that time, you're out of sharps. If you move in the opposite direction, so what happens if we take C major, we drop it a perfect fifth instead of moving up? And you take it, you drop it down. You get F major, which has 1 flat. Unfortunately, Cubase only shows sharps, so it's another name for B flat is A sharp. And it just follows. Take F major and you drop it down a perfect fifth. There are 2 flats in B flat major. Go down another perfect fifth, you have 3 flats. So this wheel, once you understand how it works, is very, very simple. It's just moving by perfect fifth, and each time you move another perfect fifth, you add another flat or you add another sharp, depending on the direction you're moving in. Does that make sense? I hope that helps. So the circle of fifths is actually really, really cool, because it just shows one of like the natural rules of like music. How you understand that like our understanding of music theory, it's all patterns. Every little bit of music theory is all about patterns. You can distill everything to patterns. That's one of the cool things that I love about music theory, is writing melodies is about understanding how melodic patterns work. Writing chord progressions is all about understanding what patterns work with chords. In fact, I did a video about that. It actually did not get as many views as I was hoping. But this video, the hidden structure behind every great chord progression, breaks down a 3-step process that will always result in a fantastic chord progression. I mean, you guys have heard my chord progressions. I love harmony. Harmony is probably one of my favorite parts. I'd say harmony and melody writing are my 2 strengths in music. I'm very good at creating interesting chord progressions, and I'm very good at writing memorable melodies. And it's because I've spent a lot of time studying and understanding the different the patterns that form behind these things. But so yeah, anywho, that was a little bit of like a little tangent to answer Steven's World's question about what the circle of fifths is, why it's helpful, and it's actually not that complicated. It just looks complicated. It looks intimidating. If we have something like this, it's much smaller, much easier with the names, but you just understand that little principle, that the different keys are related to each other by fifths. So if you want to find out, 3 sharps, A major is 3 perfect fifths above C major. And that's how we find all of these key signatures. They're not just made arbitrarily. They're related to each other. And then inside we have the minor scales, which share the same key signatures. Because C major, they're all the 6 scale degrees. If you take any major scale and you drop it a minor third or move up a 6th, you get the relative E, meaning relative scales. They're scales that share the same notes. They just start at a different note. They call a different note their home. So C major. Oops, let's go up. C major has all the same notes as A minor. They're just one starts on A, one starts on C. That makes sense? Hopefully that's helpful. All right, y'all, what other questions you got? So hopefully that helps. So far, we've talked about the piece I'm writing here. We've talked about modulation, both unprepared and prepared. So again, there's nothing wrong with unprepared. Unprepared, the term unprepared makes it sound like it's a lesser technique, that it requires less skill. It's not true at all. They just have different effects. That's why I prefer the term gear shift modulation. I think it's just kind of a cooler name, but I understand the need for unprepared. It means that you don't do anything to set up the modulation. Unprepared modulation, where you just change keys. You don't worry about having a rhyme or reason or a logic behind it. You just change keys. Because they're unprepared, because they don't have anything setting them up, they have an exceptionally strong emotional impact. They're jarring. They're in your face. They're noticeable. Prepared modulations, which use a specific strategy to smooth out the transition, have a smoother sound, a more prepared gradual transition between keys. So it's about what you want to do. Prepared require a little bit understanding of different strategies. I talked about secondary dominance, I talked about substitute dominance, and I mentioned briefly common chord modulation. If there are no further questions, I'm going to get back to working on my piece for a little bit. All right, let's listen to my sketch again. And I am going to put this here. All right. We are listening to my sketch again. If you have questions, pop them in the comments. If not, we'll call it a day. All right, here we go. I'll pop this on for anyone who joins in, possibly. And let's listen to this, shall we? What's going on here? Then we're repeating the main theme because the exposition, or like the opening movement of a concerto or sonata, is usually the main theme, repeat it twice, secondary theme, repeat it twice. And now we have the transition to our secondary theme. And this is a prepared modulation, using a secondary dominant to transition. Then we repeat the secondary theme. And then we have an unprepared modulation. Back to the main theme again. This time it's a variation, a little jazzier. All right, I like that little turnaround. I want to add a bit more. Let's try this chord right here as a B major. Let's replace this F sharp with an A. Let's try that. I like that. That sounds a bit more smooth. So what I just did is B major does pull nicely into E minor. All right? Because again, this is a secondary dominant again. B major is a perfect fifth above E minor. So it works as a secondary dominant. So what I did here, over here I have an A major to an A minor to an A sus2 to to set up the B major. And then I replaced the 5th, this F sharp, because technically this is a scale, B major looks like this. I replaced the 7th, or the 5th, with the 7th. So I could have the tritone. Remember the tritone being very important that we talked about earlier. And so I get this cool little kind of busy, let's mute this, we can hear it in the harmony. Oh, I love harmony. I love the momentum you can get from a cool ass chord progression. It's just, I love this stuff. I know this. Okay, and the idea that this is a variation. All right, the original chord progression. I'm just geeking out over harmony for a little bit. The original chord progression was, and then repeat it. And then because my secondary theme has this really cool chord progression, which is much more complex. All right, where I got these cool things going on. I decided the first variation of my main theme should also start to have a cool chord progression. And so rather than just have E minor for 2 bars, A minor for 2 bars, I got to zhuzh it up a little bit. Let's just listen to it again. I love coming up with cool chord progressions. Let's chop this up and see if it sounds cooler with multiple articulations of the chords. I kind of like that. I do like the multiple articulations. And obviously, this is just a sketch. This is literally, it's just a sketch. It's just a melody and a chord progression. I don't even have a bass line written in yet. But this is how I start all my pieces. I always start with the harmony. I like every single melody I come up with follows the same basic same basic process. My 3-step process for writing cool melodies. All right? And it's a little counterintuitive to a lot of people. Because step number 1 is start with a simple but cool chord progression. All right, step number 2 is then write the melody. And step number 3 is improve the chord progression. All right, that's what I did with this. All right, this is what I do with all of my pieces. At the very beginning, and again, this is just my process. I started out at the very beginning. When I was first teaching myself how to compose, I figured that there were 3 areas I wanted to focus on. I wanted to learn about writing really cool chord progressions. I wanted to learn how to write cool melodies, and I wanted to learn how to orchestrate really well. Still working on the orchestration bit a little bit. But harmony was the one I spent the most time at the beginning. So I feel the most confident creating really cool, unique chord progressions. And so those then inspire my melody. I mean, last live stream, I think it was, I came up with this one live with you guys. I came up with the chord progression first, and then from the chord progression, I wrote the melody, and it ended up becoming the secondary theme of this concerto sketch. And so, yeah, anywho, at this point, I feel like I'm just rambling. Let's finish listening to this, and then I think we'll call it a day, shall we? Unless someone else has more questions, speak now or forever hold your peace, all right? We've got a couple bars we're going to listen to, and after this, I have talked about modulation. I have talked about the circle of fifths. I will answer any music theory questions you have, so long as they are in the comments before the end of this sketch. I'm thinking my next steps moving forward, I'm going to, in this repetition of the theme, I'm going to add a counter melody, is what I would like to do. That's what I feel like doing. And then after I have my counter melody, then I will introduce, again, my first variation of the secondary theme, which is over here. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. It does not look like we have any more comments or questions, so gonna call it a day, I think. So thank you very much, everybody, for stopping by. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned some new things, and I hope you are feeling inspired to write some more music. I'm feeling pretty good. Couple last little housekeeping things. Don't forget, hey, Pineapple Panda, welcome, my friend. Not yet. Orchestration, well, maybe. Orchestration maybe next time. I'm not done sketching this yet. I still have a couple sections to add. I have to finish the exposition, or the development, and then come back to the recapitulation. All right, so usual stuff, usual sales, except for this right here. All right, so this is something new. All right, this is very limited. I've decided I will not be doing this again moving forward. It's fun. It's fun, but it's been a lot of work putting together. This is a 12-week string writing intensive. So this is a personal class where I was offering a chance to have like personally made classes. And so this is one I have 3 students currently enrolled who want to study for 12 weeks composing through the lens of the string section. So basically you can sign up. It's 12 lessons with you and a couple. There's also a group page that you get added to like chatting with the other people and chatting with me. Right now we are building the curriculum. So if you purchase this, you can get you're going to get a form. Fill out the form, and the form lets me know what you want to learn, what your goals are for the 12-week class. I use everybody's goals, and I put it together to create the curriculum, like the 12 lessons we will be learning in the order we will be learning. And then, yeah, we have a lot of fun with it. So right now, I have put together the first draft of the curriculum. I've gotten feedback on some other things people would like me to add. And so if you want to join, today is the last day to join, all right? Unless you reach out to me and let me know that you want to join, you just don't have the money just yet. You can let me know ahead of time, and I'll save you a spot. But there are only 3 spots left. I am maxing out the class at 6 students. We have 3 currently enrolled. So if anyone wants to join, go for it. Other than that, private lessons, I've switched up my model for this as well. I am doing an ongoing mentorship. You can buy single lessons, and then instead of bundles moving forward, you can purchase an ongoing mentorship, which is $180 per month. You get 2 private lessons and access to my library of short films to work with. You feedback on all your assignments. You get to message me and all that kind of stuff. You can cancel the membership at any time. Yeah, all the information is right here. Those are the 2 big things. Yeah, I hope that's helpful. Any last questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right, I am looking at myself on the screen. I'm going to wave the camera so I can see when the stream has caught up. No wave, no wave. Aha, I've waved. I do not see any more comments, so we're going to call it a day, my friends. Thank you very much to everybody who stopped by. I hope you learned some cool stuff, and I will see you all next week. All right, bye for now. See ya.